Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Melch, the chair of Enmax. Want to welcome everybody to Enmax's annual shareholder meeting. Our annual meeting is a great opportunity for us to be able to share with the City of Calgary, Council, and all Calgarians and results of our operations for the year and performance for the year 2018. We're scheduled to stop by 11:30 this morning, and as chair, I'll ensure that we keep to that timeline, and also will ensure that there's allowance for time for question and answer after the formal meeting and after the presentation by our CEO. I'd like to welcome those who have joined us here today at the Downtown District Energy Centre. This is an operational facility, so we'd request that everybody remain down in the bottom level during this meeting. At Enmax, we do highlight and practice safety in everything we do. And so in the unlikely event that there is an emergency, we'd request that everybody exit the building through the same doors or through the back where we came through towards the back of our meeting room. Our session today has two parts. First is a formal annual proceedings, which will happen with the shareholder, City Calgary Council, and then following the termination of the formal proceedings, we will receive a presentation from our President and CEO, Gianna Manis, on Enmax's performance and achievements for 2018. Would now like to welcome City Council members in their capacity as shareholder of Enmax that are present with us today. Mayor Naheed Nenshi, Councillor Giancarlo Carra, Councillor George Chahal, Councillor Sean Chu, Councillor Diane Colley-Urquhart, Councillor Jeff Davison, Councillor Peter DeMong, Councillor Jeremy Farkas, Councillor Drew Farrell, Councillor Jody Gondik, Councillor Shane Keating, Councillor Joe Maglioka, Councillor Ward Sutherland, and Councillor Evan Woolley. We are delighted to have all of Council really with us here, and their tremendous support that we've had in working with them. I'd also like to welcome members of our Enmax board. Since they aren't up here front, I'll have them just stand and wave as their names. Not certain if Neil Camarda was able to make it here yet today or not. Charles Rugrock, Kathy Sendel, Gianna Manis, who we'll introduce further, Elise Reese, and Richard Shaw. Now I'd like to introduce our management team, our President and Chief Executive Officer, Gianna Manis, who we'll hear from later in the meeting. Helen Wesley, Executive Vice President, Finance, Information Technology, and Chief Financial Officer. Dale McMaster, Executive Vice President, Power Supply and Delivery, and Chief Operating Officer. James McKee, Executive Vice President, Energy Services. Erica Young, Executive Vice President, Regulatory and Chief Legal Officer. Diana Stevenson, Vice President, Public Affairs. Brandy Yarish, Vice President, People, Culture, and Chief Human Resources Officer. Thank you. The agenda today for today's annual meeting and presentation from our President CEO is on the screen. After we've completed the formal business, we will end our meeting, receive Gianna's presentation, and then have a time for a public question and answer session. With that, we will now proceed to our annual shareholder meeting. Following my opening remarks and those of Mayor Nenshi as shareholder representative, we have 3 items to bring forward to our shareholder. As chair, I am now calling the formal annual shareholder meeting to order. Members of council, you have before you an agenda in your materials, and as indicated, there are 3 formal matters of business to be presented today as follows. The first, receipt of Enmax's 2018 audited financial statements. Second, the election of our board of directors. And thirdly, the appointment of the auditor for 2019. You know, we've been proud of our history in Enmax with a great relationship we've had with our shareholder. And I do want to acknowledge and thank them for the support and guidance that we've received from council, not just this past year, but continuously. They've demonstrated their commitment to ensuring our organization is guided well on behalf of the citizens of Calgary. And over the last year in 2019, we've met regularly to share information on performance, operations, investments, and outlook. This past year, we've acknowledged it's our 20th year anniversary is having an operation at Enmax as a standalone utility. And we've also spent some time with the shareholder to modernize and enhance Enmax's corporate governance framework. It's that I'd like to address a little bit today. Enmax's governance practices and council approved a series of refinements that will help us to continue to ensure that we're aligned as we go forward. As part of this review, we increased the level of engagement and communication with all members of council by increasing the number of Enmax shareholder meetings we schedule each year. This practice, already in effect, has enabled Enmax to enhance ongoing information sharing and engagement with all members of council, ensuring each is continuously informed and aware of our business performance, financial achievements, and strategic progress as we grow our organization. From my perspective, it's critical that we have alignment between the board, management, and council as city representatives to ensure that direction does meet the objectives of the shareholder. As part of this review, the shareholder considered the composition of our board. And given the increased level of engagement with all members of council as our shareholder, the shareholder has now discontinued the practice of council members serving on our board. With these changes, Enmax has now implemented standard board governance practices consistent with our industry peer group and other corporate entities. Throughout Enmax's formative years, we have been well supported by having accomplished members of council serve on the Enmax board while also serving as shareholder representatives. The value these public leaders brought to our organization as we grew and evolved was significant. I want to acknowledge the legacy of the many contributions that have been made. As a result of these changes, Councillor DeMong and Councillor Keating retired from our board in May 2019 and are not standing for re-election this year. Councillor DeMong served on our board since 2013 and Councillor Keating served since 2017. And from all of us, we thank you. It has been a privilege to work directly with councillors on our board over the years, and Councillor DeMong and Keating have just been added a lot of benefit in our association. We look forward to continuing with their insight really as all members of council, which is part of the increased engagement we have with all members of council. What still remains and will continue to guide us is really an unwavering commitment to integrity and transparency, ensuring that we are enhancing the value of Enmax for the benefit of all Calgarians. In 2018 and throughout 2019, Enmax has delivered that value through strong financial and operational performance, and we look forward to sharing that story with you shortly. However, I want to first take the opportunity to let you know about a special announcement we are making today. As we are about to hear from our President and Chief Executive Officer, Gianna Manis, the progress of our company under her leadership has been exceptional. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank her and the executive leadership team for continuing to create value for our shareholders and all Calgarians. Gianna has served as Enmax's President and Chief Executive Officer for over 7 years, and today we are announcing that Gianna has informed the board that she will retire from Enmax next year at the end of May 2020. Throughout her tenure, Gianna has navigated Enmax to significant success through a period of change in Alberta's electricity industry and a very challenging economic environment. She has instilled a strong safety, service, and performance culture focused on serving the needs of Enmax's customers and communities and creating value for Enmax's shareholder. She has shaped the company's long-term strategic direction and put in place a sound, sustainable business platform from which Enmax will continue to grow and succeed for years yet to come. With unwavering integrity, vision, determination, she advanced Enmax across every dimension, some of which would include his development of an exceptional leadership team, the advancement of our safety and operational performance, growth of our asset base and strengthening our financial capacity, enhancing of our customer service levels and satisfaction, and establishing Enmax as a leader in the Canadian electricity industry. We want to express our deepest appreciation to Gianna for her exemplary leadership. Over the coming year, as we prepare for leadership transition, Gianna will continue in her role and retains the full support of the board in advancing the business objectives and growth plans here in Alberta, as well as executing on our announced utility acquisition in the state of Maine. There will be time ahead to celebrate her many accomplishments, and we will do that. But as we move forward, the board will ensure the continuity through planned transition and initiating a thorough executive search process for her successor. And to Gianna, it continues to be an honor, certainly for me and the board and all of Enmax, and a privilege to have had her leading this organization for the past 7 years. And we look forward to another successful year under her leadership and really all of that assistance in helping us in the transition as we move forward. With that, I'd like to now turn some time over to Mayor Nenshi to say a few words.
Well, thanks very much, Greg. Let's start with Gianna, shall we? We have a whole year of saying nice things about you ahead of us. But I'll start now, since I haven't said any nice things about you all these previous years. That is not at all true. When I heard this news, I was very, very, very saddened because we hit a home run when the board convinced Gianna to move up to Canada. We didn't tell her what February was like here with her family and take the leadership here at Enmax. And over the last years, we've had a lot of tumultuous stuff, haven't we? We've had floods, we've had fires in manholes. We've had a restructure of the electricity industry, maybe. We may have another restructure of the electricity industry coming. We've had some polite conversations and less polite conversations with the provincial government around a bunch of things they're doing. And through it all, Gianna has been a tremendous leader for this organization. It's not too much to say that when 4 of us started in this job in 2010, this was a very different kind of organization. And I think it's not too much to say it was an organization that in some ways had lost its way. Strategic decisions were risky. They weren't clear what benefit they had to the citizens of Calgary. I don't mind saying executive compensation was out of control. And for too many citizens, the organization seemed to be serving its own needs rather than serving the needs of the citizens of Calgary, which is why it's owned by the City of Calgary. And I'm happy to report that none of that is true anymore, that we have an incredibly thoughtful organization, always focused on delivering value to the shareholder, always remembering that the 15 of us only represent the shareholder. We are not the shareholder. The shareholder are the 1.3 million people who live in this city who own this asset. And to me, I am extraordinarily proud of what Enmax has become and what the women and men of Enmax do every single day for our community. And so much of that is due to your leadership. You're setting the tone and that giant brain you've got there. So it will be impossible to replace you, Gianna, but we're going to try. But thank you for giving us a year, and thank you again for the extraordinary things that you've done, not just for Enmax, but for the City of Calgary. And now to Enmax. I alluded to some of this, but it's really been, I've been of a mind thinking back of the last 20 years that Enmax has served as a standalone division. Many of you know that when I moved back to Calgary in 2001, the way that I got into municipal politics, for better or worse, you'll remember this, Councillor Collier-Urquhart, was my engaging in a debate about the future of Enmax as a citizen. I'm thrilled, thanks Councillor Collier-Urquhart, that council chose to keep Enmax as a public entity, a publicly owned entity, because I think that has led to incredible value for our citizens, not just financial value, which has been substantial, but real value in thinking about how we provide safe, clean, green electricity to our citizens every day and how we can keep a foot in the market and really guide how the entire market moves forward. You've heard me say before that I believe that the provision of electricity is fundamental to our economy working. In 2001, when I moved back to Calgary in the middle of the first dot-com boom, In the state of California, where Silicon Valley was, if I would have conference calls with Silicon Valley businesses, we often would have to stop them and restart them because of the rolling brownouts. We can see what happens even in a very sophisticated place when the electricity grid doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And we've been very, very lucky that we've been able to make thoughtful, forthright investments in generation and distribution and in transmission to make sure that every single Calgarian, every business and every homeowner has access to that safe, clean, green source of energy every single day. And that's incredibly important. So, you know, if Gianna really does retire at the end and I retire someday, Gianna and I are going to have a road show, you don't know this yet, where we're going to bring safe, clean, green electricity to people around the world. It's going to be amazing. But for the meantime, we can do that here in Calgary. And congratulations to the women and men of Enmax on your 20th anniversary and on the terrific work you're doing. I'll turn it back to Greg.
Thank you. We'll now turn our attention to the 3 items of shareholder business on today's agenda. The first item is the receipt of Enmax's 2018 audited financial statements and financial report by our shareholder. The statements were audited by Deloitte LLP and approved by the Enmax board March 2019. May I please have a motion to move the resolution before you?
Thank you. I'll request a preliminary vote on the following resolution. Resolved that the shareholder of Enmax Corporation receive the 2018 annual financial statements and financial report for information. Councillor Demong, you're moving that. Councillor Keating, you're seconding it. Thank you. I saw you volunteer. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. So based on the results of that resolution, I'll cast the shareholder vote in favor of the resolution.
Thank you. We will now move to the next item on the agenda, the election of directors. Our board is comprised of experienced leaders who acting together work hard to ensure Enmax values, strategic direction, and commitment to safety and reliable operations is lived every day. We are proud of the range of industry, business, and community leadership perspective our board brings forward for the board of our shareholders and citizens of Calgary. We work tremendously hard to ensuring we have the right skill sets, the right tenure and succession and rotation on the board, and we've been really fortunate to have the capacity and strength of leaders on our board. Provided as the proposed resolution is passed, the current board, comprised of 9 members, will continue to govern with a view to serving our shareholder and the citizens of Calgary and ensuring Enmax is well positioned to deliver value. May I have a motion to move the resolution before you?
Thanks very much. Councillor Keating, you're going to move this one. Councillor Demong, you're seconding it, mainly because your names are not on it this time. But I will request that a preliminary vote on the following resolution be held, that the shareholder of Enmax Corporation approves effective immediately the election of the following directors to hold office until the next annual meeting of the corporation. Mr. Greg Melchin, Mr. Neil Camarda, Ms. Laura Formusa, Ms. Gianna Manus, Mr. Eric Markel, Ms. Elise Reese, Mr. Charles Rugrock, Ms. Kathleen Sendel, and Mr. Richard Shaw. And before I call for the vote on that, let me just say that I was going to say very praiseful things about the board and their leadership, but actually I'm kind of mad at the board right now, and I'm kind of mad at them because they're letting Gianna leave, and I wish they had done more to stop it, but I suppose I can get over that and still vote in favor of this resolution. With all seriousness, again, we have had a really terrific board. Some continuity, some new faces, really bringing us some very thoughtful governance, and certainly this is a board that I do not ever worry is just there to rubber stamp things, or is there because it's fun to be on a board. These are people who roll up their sleeves, get the work done, answer the tough questions, and as far as I'm concerned, do a terrific job doing it. So thank you to all of you. With that, perhaps I just biased the vote. So with that, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried, and I will pass the shareholder vote in favor of that resolution.
The next order of business is the appointment of the external auditor. The Enmax Audit Committee and Board reviewed this item and are recommending the appointment of Deloitte LLP as auditors for Enmax Corporation. The board is asking for authorization to fix the remuneration of Deloitte for audit work associated with the 2019 fiscal year. May I please have a motion to move the resolution before you?
Sure. Councillor Woolley, do you want to move that one? As the chair of our audit committee, Councillor Gondek as the vice chair, I think, of the audit committee. Will you second that? Thank you. On the resolution before you then, to approve the appointment of Deloitte LLP as auditors for Enmax Corp for the 2019 fiscal year and to authorize the board of directors to fix the remuneration of Deloitte LLP for the audit work associated with the 2019 fiscal year. Are we agreed? Any opposed? That is carried, so I will cast the shareholder vote in favor of that resolution.
Thank you, members of council. With that, we have now completed the business of the annual shareholder meeting. May I please have a motion to terminate the formal annual shareholder meeting?
No, they want to stay.
No, they want to
Councillor
Councillor
DeMong,
Wong.
seconded by Councillor Keating.
All in favor?
Agreed.
Thank you. Our shareholder meeting is now concluded. And on behalf of Enmax, I would like to again thank all members of council for their being with us and for their continued support. And we look forward to another very productive year in 2019. But I'd like now to introduce again formally to you Gianna Manis, our President and CEO. And as a board, we haven't yet been able to figure out all the family things in addition to the business things to be able to keep Gianna here longer. So it's we would work closely with her in this transition and really wish her all the best. But now we're going to talk about 2018 and some of the plans for going forward.
All right, thank you, Greg, and good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure today to be able to provide a business update, and as we note, the highlights of both our accomplishments and achievements of 2018, and also, given that it is June, we're going to give you a little bit of an update on our progress so far in 2019. And as our chair spoke, we are guided by the expectations of our shareholder, and it's our commitment to value creation that inspires us at Enmax to look for new and innovative ways to grow for the benefit of our shareholder, the citizens of Calgary. Our commitment to value creation is centered on delivering a stable, predictable, and growing dividend and enhancing Enmax's long-term value, providing industry leadership and serving as good corporate citizens, providing safe, reliable products and services with high standards of efficiency and customer service, and ensuring that we have an alignment with our shareholders' economic, environmental, and social goals. We have a proud history here at Enmax of powering Calgarians and Albertans, and over the past 2 decades, we've evolved into one of Alberta's most progressive electricity and power companies. We operate across our energy value chain as a regulated wires company and a competitive power generator, and also an energy retailer. We are a leader in Canada for system reliability and the top retailer for both energy and solar in the province of Alberta. Now, this business model that we have gives us a unique vantage point across all elements of our rapidly evolving electricity sector. And this enables us to take a broad view and to identify new and innovative ways to serve our customers and to power our communities today and for years to come. In support of this commitment, in 2017, we established our current strategic direction, specifically crafted to leverage industry changes, trends, and opportunities both within and outside of Alberta. Today, we are on path in executing this strategy, building a strong business built on continually improving our performance by optimizing our technology, our people, our capital investments, and our processes. We're also focused on our capital investment on growing and expanding our regulated utility portfolio and our contracted cash flows, pursuing growth opportunities in services and businesses that reinforce our connection and our relationship with our customers, and building upon our municipal relationships and services experience. With our strategy as a backdrop, I'd like to now turn to the progress that we made in 2018 and 2019, beginning with our financial results. We closed 2018 with a strong balance sheet with $5.6 billion in assets. Our 2018 adjusted earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization were $435 million compared to $424 million the prior year. Comparable net earnings were $149.2 million, up from $140.2 million in 2017. Our financial performance was achieved by closely managing our spending, enhancing our operations, effectively managing our commodity exposure and opportunities, growing our competitive customer offerings, and growing Calgary and Enmax's power delivery segment through ongoing investment in Calgary's electricity infrastructure. Our financial performance and prudent decision-making in 2018 also enabled us to declare a $50 million dividend to the City of Calgary for 2019, a 25% increase over the prior year. From 1998 to 2018, Enmax has contributed more than $1 billion in dividends to the City of Calgary. More recently, in the first quarter of 2019, we reported strong financial results compared to the same quarter last year. Comparable net earnings for Q1 2019 were $47.1 million versus $31.5 million in Q1 2018, an increase of 50%. Moving to our operations in our power delivery segment, Enmax owns, operates, and maintains the transmission and distribution system within Calgary. And last year, we invested $228 million in Calgary's electricity infrastructure. We continue to invest in the system Calgary needs to move forward by ensuring resilient, reliable electricity grid, having spent more than $1.8 billion in the last decade to sustain, grow, and enhance delivery of safe and reliable electric service for all Calgarians. This year, we're on track for about $300 million in capital expenditures, including work in preparation for the Green Line and substantial work in support of the West Calgary Ring Road and the downtown transmission system reinforcement projects. These improvements and upgrades position Calgary for the future and have a positive impact on service to customers today. As a result of these investments overall, we continue to deliver top-tier reliability in our industry. In our competitive generation segment, we maintain 1,509 megawatts of generation in our portfolio, made up of 86% natural gas and 14% wind. And we operate one of the most flexible and efficient generation fleets in Alberta. Through innovative optimization practices and prudent maintenance investment in our fleet, our generation assets continue to perform very well, with commercial availability in 2018 of over 97%. Serving our customers both today and tomorrow remains at the heart of our strategy, and as Alberta's leading energy retailer, we provide electricity and natural gas plans and customer care services for nearly 670,000 residential, commercial, and industrial customers, and more than 40 municipalities across the province of Alberta. In 2018, over 86% of our customers surveyed said they were satisfied or very satisfied with the service that they received from us, and that is a number that has consistently improved and risen over the past 3 years. We also continue to lead the way in bringing renewable energy choices to our customers, having installed 50% of Alberta's grid-connected solar. And when we talk about performance, financial and operational results are just one component of how we measure ourselves. The safety and health of our team and the public is also critical, and I am pleased to note that we exceeded our targets for safety in 2018. While we remain firmly rooted in and investing in and continuing to serve Calgarians and Albertans, our plans also involve growth through capital investments that expand our regulated utility portfolio within and outside of Alberta. One of these opportunities is the acquisition announced in March of Emera Maine, an electric transmission and distribution utility located in the state of Maine. This acquisition is a complementary opportunity as Enmax targets growth through regulated investments that align with our industry and customer service expertise, our community values, our performance expectations, and our risk profile. This acquisition marks a positive and important step in Enmax's growth, as through it, we will deliver benefits to the customers of Maine and financial benefits to our shareholder, the City of Calgary. As we've done since our inception since 1998, Enmax will receive no funds from the City of Calgary for this acquisition. There will be no impact to Calgary's taxes, revenues, or debt. There will also be no negative impacts to our customer service levels or jobs here in Calgary and Alberta. And Calgary will remain our headquarters city as we grow. Subject to securing the requisite Maine and federal regulatory approvals for this transaction, Emera Maine will become a subsidiary of Enmax. Underpinning our strategy and the execution of our business plans is our mission, which is to power the potential of people, businesses, and communities by safely and responsibly providing electricity and energy services in ways that matter to them today and in the future. Our mission guides our strategy and how we do business, and as we look ahead, we know that energy providers must continue to provide affordable, reliable, sustainable, and safe electricity, and now must also grow through enabling technologies that can support future customer and community needs in new ways. Throughout 2018 and into 2019, Enmax was recognized both nationally and here in Alberta for looking ahead and putting our value of innovation in action, having announced a series of pilot projects and initiatives that will help to ensure our electricity infrastructure is positioned to serve our communities today and tomorrow. One such project that we're quite proud of is the work we are engaged to enable two-way power flow in downtown cores, which will allow customers on this specialized segment of the grid to send extra renewable self-generated electricity back into Calgary's electricity grid for others to use. This project is the first of its kind in Canada, and this innovative project right here in Calgary received $1.4 million in federal government funding in 2018. And it will not only make Calgary's power grid more resilient and efficient, but could provide an innovative solution for other urban centers to benefit from in the future. In addition to our work to advance our electricity system, I'm also proud of our team and for their commitment to bettering the communities where we live and work. In 2018, the Enmax team contributed more than $3.8 million and volunteered thousands of hours to help our local community partners and the people they serve. Volunteering has always and long been a part of our culture at Enmax, and last year our team was recognized for their efforts by the Government of Canada in receiving Canada's Volunteer Award for Business Leader in the province, in the Prairie Provinces. More recently, Enmax was selected as one of 6 recipients of Aspen Family Services Hope Awards. And these awards are given to individuals and corporations who've made substantial contribution to the lives and individuals and families in our communities. As we move forward, Enmax is committed to doing our part by adapting to change through growing a stable business base from which to create value, while also continuing to meet the needs of our customers and our communities. We've been successful throughout our history by adapting to our changing environment, and we will continue to do so. As we look forward, we're focusing our strategy on building on our strengths of service, reliability, community, and bringing progressive solutions to our systems and our customers. In closing, I would like to recognize the contributions of the more than 1,700 people of the Enmax team. Our success is a direct result of their efforts and dedication to living our values and delivering on our mission. And thank you to our customers. You inspire us to work hard for you every day. It has, and continues to be a privilege to lead Enmax's outstanding team of creative, resilient, and passionate people who are dedicated to serving our customers and our communities. And I am deeply proud of the many achievements that we have made over the years. And I'm also very excited for the bright future ahead for Enmax. Although I will be leaving next May, I remain committed to advancing Enmax's goals, positioning the company for continued success and achieving regulatory approval of our acquisition in Maine so that we can welcome that team into our Enmax family and serve Maine customers with the same commitment to reliability, service, and innovation that our Alberta and Calgary customers will continue to receive, and that is our commitment to all of you. I also look forward to supporting a smooth transition with my successor, and upon completion of this transition, I will be joining my family in the Southeast U.S. And finally, to all of you here today, thank you for taking the time and the interest to be part of our conversation about Enmax. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our chair.
Thank you, Gianna. We'll now have time for question and answers. There should be microphone. There's 2 microphones. If you would raise your hand, or if anybody else, please.
if this is working.
Might have you, just as a matter of proceedings, just introduce your name and then the question.
Okay, my name is Atul Jain, and my question is, can you list some of the most important things that we've learned from our main acquisition?
Sure, I make sure, am I on? Do I need to press a button? All good. So we're still, early days. We announced the acquisition and our intent to acquire this main utility in March. We don't yet own it. We are currently going through the regulatory approval process, and we're hopeful to be able to close this transaction by the end of this year or early next. But what have we learned? First of all, as part of the process before we made the decision as part of the process to buy this utility, we did extensive due diligence. We spent time with their management team. We had thousands of pages of documents that we were able to review and, really did our homework around whether or not this was the type of organization and company that would fit well with us. And clearly we decided that it was. It fit our strategy. And what we saw there was a well-run utility and an opportunity to be able to grow our business through, like I mentioned, the things that we do well. So since that time, we have been fortunate to be spending quite a bit of time with the team as part of also the regulatory process and getting to know many of the people in Maine. So some of the things that we see, and number one, it is a well-run company, and we're finding that now that we're on this side of the process, and I've already announced we're going to, where things are going as we had expected. We had anticipated the process. We had done our homework in terms of what we were interested in looking at for them, and we're just learning more about them. There have been no surprises. They're a well-run company, and I'd say the thing that's most encouraging is that we share common values around the importance of safety, around the importance of reliability, around commitment to community, and about investing and making sure that we run a top-notch, reliable electricity system. So we're looking forward to taking the things that we also do very well here and continuing to transition to a new owner, and then building on the good things that have already been done. And the last thing I would add is, when in our industry, we have the fortune of being able to share best practices, and we do look forward to learning from things that they do there and helping to improve the way we do things here. Enmax is a company that every day we wake up and say, how can we do it better? How can we make it better? And so an opportunity to learn from Maine, just as they will learn from us, is something that we're really looking forward to.
Thank you. Question in the back.
Yeah, John Keller speaking. So I got a two-part question for you. One is, you talked about the dividend, and so I think on the slide here you said $50 million this year. You talked about a growing dividend, so the first part of the question would be, where do you see in the short term, next few years, where the dividend would grow? The second part of the question is the shareholder equity, if you could maybe confirm where it is, and maybe as well talk about maybe where do you see that growing in the next few years.
Okay, dividend equity and where we're going. So the first thing on the dividend is we always look to what are our comparable net earnings for the year, and that is the basis upon which that we form and make the decisions with the board of directors on the dividend that will be paid the next year. And so we had an improvement last year, so we were able to increase the dividend by 25% for the city this year. We don't commit to what the dividend specifically will be. Those decisions are not made by the board of directors, for example, this year, until we have all of our earnings for 2019 known, and that decision will be made next year in March when we declare the dividend. What I will say is we continue, as you saw in the first quarter, we're having a good solid year for 2019, and we're off to a very good start, so we're encouraged about how we're doing compared to last year. We're seeing some improvements there for a number of reasons. And then on go-forward basis, when we look to close the transaction of Emera Maine, again, either the end of this year or next year, we expect it to be accretive or beneficial to earnings from day one. And just from a size perspective, bringing Emera Maine on will increase our regulated earnings by our regulated footprint by 50%. It will make us about 70% of our earnings will come from regulated part of our business, which is a very stable, predictable part of our business. And overall, it will grow Enmax by about 25%. So between the things that we're doing here to be efficient and more effective here on our Enmax business in Alberta, as well as the acquisition of Maine, we look forward to be able to have that predictable, stable, and growing dividend that we commit to. Your second question was about the shareholders' equity, I believe, and I'd like to turn to Helen Wesley, who's our CFO, and ask that she go ahead and answer that question.
Hi. So Gianna mentioned the amount of dividend that's been paid over the years to the City of Calgary, and the initial City of Calgary injection into Enmax's equity was about 250 million, 300 million or something like that. And right now, shareholders' equity is sitting at $2.3 billion. So very significant growth in equity over that period.
And I think the last question I might have answered on the first question was, where do we see things going? And what we continue to see is an opportunity to grow Enmax and also continue to improve on the operations that we have today, as well as expand through this acquisition that we mentioned. So we're expecting to be able to fully meet the objective of a steady, stable, growing dividend for years to come. And I can tell you that's really what we wake up every day to make sure that we can deliver to our customers, but also to deliver on that opportunity to grow. By growing Enmax, we are able to grow the value of the company, and in growing the value, we are able to transfer some of that value to our shareholder in the form of dividends.
Councillor Farrell.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank Gianna for all the work that you've done for the city and for Enmax. You've lived here during some really tumultuous times, and I will remember the images of you during the flood, likely for the rest of my life. I do have a question, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask a question about climate and the climate crisis. What role do you see Enmax playing in the transition to a clean energy economy?
There's a lot of dimensions and a lot of things that I think we have done and what we would continue to do. You've heard us already talk about 50% of every solar panel installed in Alberta is an Enmax project, and we have been working with our customers to be able to help advance their goals, and in doing so, the overall climate and the overall environmental footprint of Alberta has benefited. But we don't stop there. It's also in things like making our plants, our natural gas plants that we have, more efficient. Investing in the plants we have, and the more we can, if we can invest where it makes sense and getting more output. We've been doing that even in our Shepherd Energy Center, which is our hallmark plant. We did an investment in some equipment last year that increased its output substantially. So for the same amount of gas going in, more electricity generated. And that, again, is a good news environmental story because it's less emissions. But the last thing that I think is really important is we've talked about our strategy of focusing on growing our utility business, and that has an emphasis, like with the acquisition of Emera Maine. We're emphasizing our investment on transmission and distribution wires. The electricity industry is undergoing significant change, and one of the biggest trends we see that we think will be increasing and become more evident is distributed energy generation. Distributed energy, not just solar, but other forms and battery storage that will take place at the ends of our systems on our customer premises, much like our solar program, but just in a more substantial way. The wires business and investing in our distribution business, like we're doing here in Calgary, is the key to being able to have a dynamic system that can allow these new technologies, most of which are green technologies, renewable technologies, to be able to be invested in ways that they have not been able to be invested in the past. So our emphasis on grid innovation at the distribution level in particular is going to be a significant contribution to enhancing the environmental footprint. The downtown Calgary project that I mentioned in my remarks earlier. Today, you cannot put a solar panel on the roof of a big business, a big building in the downtown core because the technology doesn't exist to allow that power to flow back onto the distribution grid. Enmax is doing a first-of-its-kind project to break through that barrier so that downtown core buildings can also participate in being a cleaner, greener system. So we're optimistic. So, you know, the things that we're doing are many, and what I can tell you is we're committed to investing in things that make sense, have potential, and also enable a new energy infrastructure going forward.
Other questions? Please.
Hi, Scott Brandt here. Just curious your input on the Alberta market, just regulatory-wise, maybe tax base or even the new capacity market that's coming into play and how that'll trickle through to customers potentially.
Oh, there's a lot of things in that question. So let me see. Okay, so you know, one of the things that we said last year was making sure that we have smart regulation and policy that also help enable smart decisions. And we've continued to have a number of changes in the electricity policies around the market structure of Alberta over the next number of years, and we've been adapting to those. One of the most material is a number of years ago, the government at the time announced that we would be transitioning to a capacity market by 2021, and we've been going through the work with the regulators. It's currently been under review by the Utility Commission of Alberta. And now we've been spending time with the recent government after April, talking with them about the implications of continuing to move to a capacity market. Enmax has, and I will say that the government is asking a lot of questions. They're trying to understand and become educated on all things related to electricity. And what we're finding is we're having good conversations and dialogue with them. But specifically about the capacity market, Enmax is not supportive of us continuing to progress to a capacity market in Alberta because we've done extensive studies, as have other credible analysis firms looked at this, and the estimate is that in the first year alone, the capacity market has the potential to cost Albertans $1.1 to $1.4 billion of costs that, quite frankly, Albertans should not bear and needn't bear compared to the current energy-only market. So we are continuing to communicate that information to the government, and we will see where all of this goes over the coming months. But we're of the position that one of our roles is to support our customers and to stand by them and identify policies that will cost Albertans more money than they should. And so we are supportive of continuing with the energy-only market because the retailers, and Enmax is one of them, but there are many, the retailers have capacity and ability to take on some of this risk and also protect customers from any volatile prices. So that's kind of where we stand on that, and we hopefully will know in the coming months. That being said, wherever it goes, Enmax is going to adapt to whatever market rules that we have, and we're going to make the best of them, and we're going to run our company as efficiently and as effectively as we can under whatever rules end up coming our way at the end of the day.
Other questions? Please, Councillor Farkas.
First question, if you don't mind, a couple. First, I was wondering if you could weigh in a little bit more on the removal of city councillors from the board. Council has recently made decisions to add councillors to the board of, say, Calgary Municipal Land Corporation. I was wondering if in your response you could talk about some of the other comparables of other city-owned utilities such as EPCOR and others. So just to provide context.
Well, given that's a governance question, I'm going to let our chair, I think it's appropriate for him to respond to that one.
Thank you. Just as an example, EPCOR, a city-owned utility in Edmonton, ever since their contract, they've not had councillors on their board. there are a number of advantages that have come, but you always introduce conflicts, and so that's the kind of issue that we look at for governance. But for us, it's been more of a matter, how do we inform all of council? We've had 2 councillors on our board. We've wanted to see that we've had better communication with the entire council, more frequency of meetings, and so that the whole council could be advised. The 2 councillors on our board, really, because it was confidential in nature, could not share that information with the balance of council. And so we've gone back to really what is more of a common practice really throughout other city-owned utilities like EPCOR and others, as well as in the corporate world, where the shareholder delegates appropriately those responsibilities to the board. And then what is the construct of the board? But it's been, for our purposes, how do we continue to have more communication with all of council to keep you informed and in direction?
Thank you. And my second question is if you could describe a little bit more on the board's approach to pay for performance, just looking at page 37 of the public report that's been issued here. I noticed approximately about a 10% increase in total compensation from 2017 to 2018.
Our board compensation philosophy hasn't changed at all over the years. We've introduced this back some number of years ago where we talked about how do you set appropriate levels and how do you benchmark that. We do set peer company groups that we'll benchmark ourselves against. Not that that gives you all the information, but it gives you some comparatives at least. But we've tried to make sure that Enmax is not at the high end. We've set at the 50th percentile, both for board and for executive compensation. And so you don't see, for example, our board at the high end of compensation of any's. You don't see our executive team at last week's Herald article. You don't see our executive on the high list of those either. We do need to attract talent. We do need to make sure that we're competitive. We do need to see that we can provide that type of offer for directors and a senior executive. So it's been since 2014 since we've had any. We don't make these changes that often. We were following substantially behind. We're still below that 50th percentile, and we made an adjustment in 2018.
Thank you. My last question is, it relates to the challenging dual role that I think councillors have, not just as city councillors, but sitting as we do representing the shareholder and other duties that we have toward confidentiality. As a member of council, I've been approached by constituents who have asked how I have represented them, say in terms of my view of the acquisition, the potential and proceeding acquisition of Emera Maine. Am I at a juncture where I am actually able now to share publicly my views on this and how I cast my vote in the shareholder meeting, or is this still confidential?
Well, the Emera Maine transaction's out there in public, and all those things are for public discussion in that vein. We still have a regulatory process, and very helpful to see that we keep the appropriate dialogue, both of understanding what are the issues in Maine as well as in Calgary here. One of the things in the change of governance was to ensure that, you know, we want to see that the Maine customers are served according to what would be good practice and good for the Maine itself, and not necessarily tied into what are Calgary issues, but would be very important for Maine. So there is ability to comment. Most of this is public domain, but we are not yet the owner of this. And really, as a shareholder representative, I think it still is very the appropriate way to consider what kind of questions, what kind of information should we supply to the public, given that we're trying to represent the best face of Calgary and its ownership to the public utility in Maine.
Yeah, I guess where I'm going with this is that this was authorized in a confidential shareholder meeting. As each member of council, we each cast a vote. Am I able at this time to share how I cast my vote, or is this still confidential?
Well, to my knowledge, those meetings are confidential, and that's kind of the nature of the challenge that we've had changing governance, is that in the past, part of the governance practice was you had to vote for all these major transactions. Now, really, which is common among all really corporations, EPCOR included and other municipally owned, is you delegate that responsibility and requirement and liability, all of that, to a board of directors. And really you have to, and that's what's essential, is you have confidence in who are the people that are running an organization. if you need to have confidence and trust in the directors in that election, and we do appreciate that that's what's been delegated and granted to us. Just as a board, we need to have confidence in the leadership of our organization from their executive team, and we continuously review that. But all of these natures are commercially sensitive. We have not yet concluded and still needs that basis of, that's the nature of those confidential in-camera meetings, is such that we can only reveal so much until really transactions are complete.
One of the things I'd just like to add, and while you've brought up the topic of Emera Maine, is that you've heard us talk about growing Enmax and seeking opportunities that fit what we're looking for and fit what we do well is a way for us, from a regulator perspective, in a lower risk environment, to grow Enmax in a way that then benefits our ability to increase our dividend and our shareholder. But one of the things I'd also like to add, it's the operations and the success of Enmax here in Calgary and the reputation that we have, not just, a reputation born through statistics and data and our performances. Our ability to be able to be successful in Emera Maine, in this acquisition in Maine, is because of the track record of performance and quality that we continue to deliver here in Calgary. So it's actually a very good news story. We're hearing, the people in Maine look at Alberta and they look at Calgary as a progressive environment. Enmax is part of that story. We are a progressive utility looking around the corner, and we're getting it done every day here. High levels of customer satisfaction, high reliability. We are part of our community. We put volunteers into the community. We give back, and we're thinking ahead and around the corner on innovative solutions to these challenges in our electricity sector, and trying to do that in a way that benefits our customers, because we always think outside in. And it is that track record that is helping us and really presented the opportunity for us to be able to grow in Maine. So we're excited to be able to do that, because we're able, again, to grow and kind of export our expertise, but also to grow Enmax in a way that will benefit Calgarians as the owners of Enmax. So I just wanted to add that this is a good export story for Calgary, that we do a lot of great things in this city, and many companies do, and being able to take that and bring that to other communities is a real positive.
Thank you for the response. And to respond to you, sir, I do have confidence in the board, and I was very happy to support the appointment of the directors here. That's not really my question, though. The question in my mind just returns to the quality of representation that I give to my constituents. So while I may trust the board, I feel at this time I need a little bit more for the citizens I represent to trust me, rather than saying that it's confidential at this time. But I think I've said my piece, and I'm going to be pushing as hard as I can to be able to share a little bit more, but I fully appreciate the confidential requirements at this time.
Thank you. With that, I do want to thank everyone for attending our annual general meeting today. If you have other questions, we'll be remaining behind for media and others if they have questions. But thanks again for your attendance, and we'll conclude our meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.